What do you think Woody Allen's image is today, right now?
It's very confusing because all of a sudden, since Midnight in Paris, he's become a very popular commodity. There was always the controversy with Woody that happened in the 90s, and that seemed to overshadow everything. But maybe
you mean all the private life?
Yeah, maybe there's enough distance there in the public perception that they can just see the work again.
What is incredible is that he is a personal filmmaker who somehow seemed able to separate his private life from his artistic, personal, that part of his personality. When he won the Oscar for Annie Hall, when he won his Best Director and won Best Film, he didn't even know it. He went that night and played clarinet at the Carlisle, and he's still playing there. This many years later, you could still go to the Carlisle, I think it's Monday night, and watch him. He doesn't make any eye contact with the audience, but he plays his clarinet. And he only found out that he had won the Oscar. He got the New York Times supposedly the next day, and he looked at it and said, "Oh, we won four Oscars." And I think the sense I had when he was starting out, he was very much, people loved Woody and loved his shtick, and I thought he was kind of a neurotic, self-indulgent egotist, the nebulous egotist. What I didn't realize at the time is, and people have said this throughout his life, and his sister says that, and the women in his life say that, and his friends and colleagues say that, he's a very shy person. And this image that they promoted on television across the country that just saturated the image of Woody, well, that was a product, or that was a commodity. That wasn't the real man, who I guess he was a gag man, but he was terrified of making personal appearances. And then as he evolved, and I still wasn't much of a fan, and then there was the blockbuster of Annie Hall, and then the later years. Not Blue Jasmine. It will, I think, be the second time. Now he's had 5 actors who have won Oscars, and 4 of them women, and only one of them was a lead actress, Diane Keaton for Annie Hall. I think that at this point in time, Cate Blanchett has to be the favored to win the Oscar, and it will be only the second time that one of his leading stars, I think they got 15 nominations, his actors throughout his career, but it's only the second time that I think if she wins that a leading actor or actress will have won.
Yeah, which is still an amazing track record. I mean, he does have an absolutely amazing track record, particularly with performances, and it's all in the writing, I would imagine. So, what is it that he understands about women that allows him to write them so beautifully?
That's another thing. That's another thing about him. Did you look at all of the women who have loved him, admired him, really fallen for him, and you say, no, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. But you look at so many of them. Diane Keaton has said she tried to make him fall in love with her. Mia Farrow was in his life. He was married to Louise Lasseter. And you look at Naomi Watts, Scarlett Johansson, Penelope Cruz. They all think he's a very, very human. Penelope Cruz says he understands a neurotic woman better than anybody, which doesn't say a whole lot for his experience. But I think there is something about him that may be forgotten, that how human He is. Now, he's fickle at times, and he goes off on diversions, and you say, Woody, what the heck are you doing? But he always seems to come back. And you can trace his whole life and go back to, he was born as Alan Stewart Konigsberg, and he changed his name. His name was changed to Woody Allen. Well, Allen being a different spelling of his first name. But do you know where the Woody came from?
Mm-mm.
It wasn't Woody Woodpecker. It was Woody Herman. It was Woody Herman. No, here's a man in film that you think, if I'm going to rename myself, I might name myself after a character that I loved or a director that I really appreciate. But he named himself making homage to this clarinetist. And he had said that in some interviews, he said, if I had my choice, I'd rather be a great clarinet player than a film director or a film personality. And I think there, when you have that appreciation of music as he has all through his life, it keeps you human. It keeps you alive. It keeps you sensitive. And I think the women in his work have seen two things about him: the sensitivity and also the intelligence, and that really does appeal to women.
I don't think the modern screenwriter realizes that women are just as complex and probably a lot more complex than male characters, and Woody actually writes them that way.
I don't think that's really the issue here. I think the modern screenwriter, there's no place for him unless he has an explosion or bathroom humor or some kind. How many really fine scripts have we seen in the last decade, or over a decade, more than a decade? There was a piece a couple of weeks ago in the LA Times by Stephen Farber, and I didn't like it at all. I thought it was the kind of thing that people are doing so often today. I'm writing this to create controversy, and look at me. Where he said he was writing about the older directors, especially Clint, and even more so Woody, and he said that he thought Blue Jasmine was overrated. He said many of the scenes are stale and there's a repetitiveness to them. Well, of course there's a repetitiveness. It's called thematic consistency or vision. And I think when you bring up the writing aspect of him, he is one of the few directors that is first and foremost a writer. Now, he started as a gag writer, but he is a writer. And you look at the recent films of Clint, of Eastwood, has directed. And I think the last really good film was Gran Torino. And the ones that came after it, Invictus, Hereafter, J. Edgar, and Trouble with the Curve, they all had pretty weak scripts. Woody doesn't have to go looking for a writer. He is the writer. And in that sense, he reminds me of some of the great directors who were writers, and especially if you can leap all the way back to Charlie Chaplin.
Mm-hmm. What impresses me about Blue Jasmine, well, many things, but in terms of the writing and the characterization, he doesn't apologize for his lead character, and certainly Cate Blanchett doesn't either. And Cate Blanchett, she doesn't attempt to kind of take the edge off the character at all, or soften it in any way. There's an uncompromising quality about that character that I admired, but it keeps a lot of people distanced from the movie. I think a lot of people that don't like the movie just confuse it with not necessarily liking the harshness of that character.
I think there isn't a character in the film that we really closely identify with, but that doesn't mean it's not provocative and interesting. And if she had softened the character, Woody would have looked at it and said, "Oh, does this work?" I mean, I think he's enough of an individual who goes with his actors, who loves his actors, and they take him places that he didn't suspect, and they take him ways that are intriguing and interesting. But he might say, no, let's make it a little sharper, because she would certainly be open to that. But she immediately decided to take this character and make her the queen of deceit, the queen of deception. It's not only decepting everybody around her, but she's deceiving ultimately herself. And once Cate Blanchett thought of that, she was able to explore that, and these are great actors. That's one thing. What Woody probably doesn't get credit enough. Well, he doesn't get credit enough for a lot of things. He doesn't get credit enough for his writing. Some of it is gag writing, and some of it is smarmy, and some of it just doesn't work. But there's always a sense of a writer not just taking the easy way out, but discovering and exploring. Secondly, his cast. He has recast films partway through. I think he had Michael Keaton in The Rose of Cairo, and he said it just didn't work, and so he recast it with the guy on Newsroom,
Jeff Daniels.
Yeah, with Jeff Daniels.
Yeah,
and he will do that. So there's a combination of his understanding and appreciating the characters, but if they don't work, he's willing to say, not to insult them, but to just say it's just not working. There's a famous story about Wiest saying The Bullets Over Broadway. She couldn't do it, and he showed her the rushes, and she said, You've got to fire me. I've got to leave. And he said no. And the bottom line is that he stayed with her. It finally clicked for her, and she won the Oscar for that award. So I think we talk a lot about film being collaborative. I would guess that Woody Allen's films are as collaborative as anybody that is making films today.
Well, there's also, I mean, he recast an entire film with September, and he reshot it,
right?
Which is pretty jaw-dropping as well.
Well, what is really jaw-dropping, if it's true, is he offered to make a film for nothing if they kept Manhattan in the can. What? What would he? I mean, it just wasn't his vision, or wasn't up to what he aspired to, and it came out, and it was a wonderful person. But the other thing, I think, and maybe this is the third thing that is most ignored or most not recognized, is the evocative nature of his films. He has worked with great cinematographers. Yeah. He made 8 films with Gordon Willis, and Gordon Willis he did the Godfather trilogy, he did Parallax View, and he was a terrific cinematographer. But he was the Prince of Darkness, and he used dark. And do you realize this is one of the shocks that makes me shake my head in disbelief. He got nominated. Gordon Willis, this is one of the greatest film cinematographers in American film history. He got nominated for 2 motion pictures, for cinematography in 2 motion pictures. One was a Woody Allen film. Guess what it was?
It wasn't Manhattan?
It wasn't Manhattan. It wasn't Annie Hall. It wasn't Interiors. It wasn't anything you would.
I don't know.
It wasn't. He did Stardust Memories, and it wasn't that. He got nominated. This is one of his 2 nominations. He got nominated for Zelig. That's the one Woody Allen film he was nominated for. The other film, I mean, this shows what it's really like in Hollywood. He got nominated for one other picture, and it was Godfather Part 3. He got ignored in 1. He got ignored in 2, which were the 2 best, and I think Part 2 is one of the great American films. He got nominated for The Godfather Part 3.
Wow.
So, I mean, does that say Tomes and?
Oh, and then you look at stuff like I think he did All the President's Men, and I mean, you look at all of those accomplishments. I mean, he should have been nominated, a dozen times for the number.
Right.
Of his movies.
Well, one of the points I'm making is he was so important to Allen's films. I mean, the feeling of them, the ambience, the intoxication that came up on a screen and through the images. And the other, I love Vilmos Zsigmond. Vilmos Zsigmond did 2 of his recent films, neither of them his great films. But do you know who did the cinematography for Crimes and Misdemeanors?
Wasn't it Bergman's?
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Sven Nykvist, which was Ingmar Bergman's cinematographer. Well, here is a man, Woody Allen, that knows artistry and music, and I'm sounding like I'm gushing over Woody, and I'm still leery about him. I don't want to fall completely into the honeypot, but the more you think about what he's done and the people who have helped him and where the collaboration has worked. Now, one thing he does that I think I should mention here about the writing, he lets the character change a line. He lets a character change valise to suitcase because she's more comfortable saying suitcase, or say a line. But he's always master of what they say, and always the deciding factor. And he's gotten some great lines. I think it was in Stardust Memory that he said, everybody knows the same truth. Our lives consist of how we distort it. And he said it could be religion, which it certainly is. It could be capitalism, which it really is. It could be the sensual life, or it could be art. And then another line that he made up that you wouldn't think was Woody making this up. I think it's her last line, his last line to her. It's at least a line near the end of Manhattan. He says, this is the Woody Allen character who says, you have to have a little faith in people. You wouldn't expect that to be a Woody Allen line. You'd expect that maybe somebody made it up, but he spoke it, and it was a line that he had written. And so while he allows them to explore, he also has a lead and a control.
His life philosophy, which a lot of people say is very pessimistic, he says it's realistic. Things don't make sense. They're not. The universe is not necessarily just. You die, and that's it. To bring up two movies in which this life philosophy is kind of realized. In Crimes and Misdemeanors, Martin Landau commits this atrocious act. He hires a hitman to kill his mistress, to silence her.
Right.
He's guilt-stricken about it, but by the end of the movie, it kind of fades. He'll be okay. He can deal with whatever guilt he's left with, and life goes on. In Blue Jasmine...
let's talk about that first. Let's talk about the other one first.
Okay? Go ahead.
And then come back to Blue Jasmine. So many of Woody's films have a fascinating theme or fascinating vision. And in that, it was good things happen to bad people. Bad things happen to good people, but good things happen to bad people. And to me, that idea just permeates the film. And the film ultimately is human because it doesn't concoct endings that might please the audience or might be more generic. He lets it go where it almost must go. And I think that works really, really well in that film. Now, you were going to say about Blue Jasmine.
Well, it's a similar thing. It's Blue Jasmine or Jasmine, when the third act reveal occurs, and we'll just talk about it here. Who cares? When it's revealed that she actually gave up her husband to the cops,
right.
Even though it was done for selfish, vengeful reasons, you could argue that was the right thing to do. And by doing the right thing, she is nothing but punished for it for the remainder of the movie, which I thought that was pure Woody Allen.
Yeah, it is. There's a complexity to it, and what I also love, and I said it in my review, is that Woody is bringing the irony that was so basic to our films in the 70s, that golden age of American cinema. He's bringing irony into the 21st century, into the year 2012 or 2013, and most of his films have a palpable sense somewhere along the line of irony in terms of the relationships, in terms of what you want and what you get. And she is punished, but she made her own boudoir. She has deceived. Now, she told the truth, and that works against her, but it was also it wasn't a benevolent gesture on her part.
Right.
It's still, her character is still self-protective and ultimately or completely self-absorbed. And so anything can be victimized or cast away if it doesn't satisfy her needs. And there was something, the relationship had faltered. And so I think you're right. And that's one thing, is that something can be two things at one time. It can be, as he says, love and contempt. He says, I don't say hate, I say contempt. Love and contempt. I think Woody is a cynic, but a cynic is a failed idealist. So while being a cynic, he is also still a romantic.
Yeah.
And so he's got different levels of his own. And I think it comes down to humanity, the human condition.
Yeah, and I do find humanity in that character of Jasmine. I mean, taken on her own terms, I do empathize with her, and it takes a while. It took a while for me to do that, but there's a remarkable scene where she's in her sister's apartment, and what's his name, the Sarsgaard, finally calls her back, and they arrange a meeting, and she hangs up the phone, and she just breaks down and sobs on the bed. the only way she knows how to gain any sense of control in her life again is to do what she did to begin with, to find a man that can woo a man to take care of her,
Right.
and based on those terms, I felt complete empathy with her. I do think that the humanity in his films, and obviously, I'm taken by Vicky Cristina Barcelona. I have a tremendous sensitivity towards that movie, and few movies have moved me as much as that one, actually.
Well, there the ultimate theme is: do we seek love, do we pursue love, or do we settle?
Yeah,
And at the end of the film, that's the clear choice, and that's very much a question that a lot of us face or have faced or will face in life in our relationships. What's one of the big problems that all of us face is how do we participate in and understand art? Art invites us, but it doesn't open the door and cast a light on what it's about, or so you bring something to the film, you bring your preconceptions, and you bring your own basic character, personality, sensibility, but finding the key to art. I went through this with Match Point, which was the Woody Allen film in 2005. I think it pretty much is his homage to Hitchcock. I haven't seen anybody else say it, but there's a lot of Hitchcock in it. But here I'm watching it and I'm saying, well, this is good, this is intriguing, this is an interesting change. And about a third of the way through, I was suddenly thought about Hitchcock a little bit, and then I thought about his dualities, his sense of doubles, his doppelgangers, his pairs, and one usually being imperfect and the other being good or perfect or good, I guess. And once I saw that, it was like, now wait a minute, let me see. Oh my goodness, those two characters walking together. Those two pictures are on the wall. They're hung together. There are two pregnancies. There are two deaths. And suddenly, and then, and I am, how do I say this without seeming pretentious? But when there was a line that the character's name is Chris, and the murder has been committed. The cop is calling to one of his colleagues, and he calls him Chris, and boom. I thought, nobody is going to see this. Nobody is going to get this, that this is written, this is intentional, and so when I finished that film, I played it again all the way to Chris to make sure I got it right. Did I just think it? No, it's two Chris's, and of course that is the idea that of the two Chris's. And I've had that several times in my. Then the film and the filmmaker become completely different, because I now share the experience on his terms and my own, not just my own.
Yeah, that is interesting. I do need to revisit Match Point, and I did read your recent review of it. Now, did you just revisited that movie yourself? And that's
I don't even know whether I saw it originally.
Oh.
I may have seen part of it on television. I'm at that point. I had thought that Woody was pretty, he pulled a Clint on us, and then he was walking down the path. Of course, Clint is 5.5 or 6 years older than Woody, and Woody's at the same age. Interesting, 77. December 1st, he gets to be 78. that Hitchcock was when his last movie was released, Family Plot. I think he too was 77. But
what's interesting too is that, I mean, when Match Point came out, there was a big comparison between that and Crimes and Misdemeanors. But in a way, most of Woody Allen's films feel like all of a piece. Like he is a filmmaker, like a lot of great artists who are obsessed with certain themes that he returns to time and again, and he's trying to make sense of these themes and explore them in a more articulate, clear-headed way each time out, I think.
Just from a different angle, too.
Yeah.
I mean, one theme can be approached from a myriad number of ways, of avenues into recognition and consideration and contemplation of it. I don't know whether I'm a Woody Allen fan. I admire him tremendously. And I think he is a major American film artist. And I think, like he said, maybe in the long run, people will reconsider my work, and it will be appreciated more. It reminds me of Hitchcock in a sense, that Hitchcock seemed like a one-dimensional director. And this year, how many years after his death, Vertigo is picked as the greatest film ever made, by sight and sound, by the critics and film makers in the decade's poll. And I think that Allen. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I'm curious to know what are the qualities in what Allen's work that would keep you from considering yourself a fan?
I was thinking about this today before you called, and I don't look forward to the next Woody Allen film.
Mm-hmm.
I should, I guess. I do admire him, and once I work with it, I think I've got the baggage of so much of his what I considered self-indulgent beginnings, and even so, I'm awaking more to him. What I mean by a fan is a fanatic, is somebody that says, "Oh, Woody, I've got to see his next one. I'll take the plane if he's playing the clarinet at the Carlisle next week." It's almost, and I really shouldn't admit this because it sounds, but I'm not sure I'm a Clint Eastwood fan. I love some of his work, and maybe that's what my criticism does. It's an ongoing, evolving thing, and I'm now going back thinking maybe the film I thought was his best was Dirty Harry, the Don Siegel film, because that is a film. When I saw it, I wasn't as strongly. I didn't feel as strongly as Pauline Kael did. Pauline Kael called him a fascist and all that kind of stuff. And I think I've told you that after I saw the film, men went into the bathroom and kicked open the stall. And macho was all over the place. But here's another film that I saw later, and Dirty Harry. There is a terrific shot when Harry is on the school bus. Scorpio is on top of the bus. He bends down and they look at each other. They're both holding a gun, and it's a mirror image. The front windshield. I thought, wow. And then once I figured out there was it's a doppelganger. It's a split personality. Then the film had. I'm an interpretive critic, and it had symbols and metaphors and that I could reconsider. And when I saw his badge number is 2211. Now people are probably saying, "Boy, is he off the wall?" What? But he made his badge number 2211. Well, 2211. It's the two of them one becomes the two, and
Sure.
and the whole film shot at the end of in the old, like it's the Old West, but it's of course modern San Francisco, and in the distance you can see cars on the highway while there is this scene that could be 100 years ago. So again, so much of criticism for me is living, breathing, vital reconsideration and consideration and reconsideration.
Yeah, and I think that's the sign of a great critic too. That will, as life goes on, you constantly kind of reassess and look at it from different perspectives. But you bring up Dirty Harry, and that's an apt analogy to Woody Allen's films, because that Dirty Harry presented a moral code that was disturbing to a lot of people. It made them queasy, and I think the same is true of a lot of the themes that Woody Allen explores in terms of morality.
Yeah, it's a complex. Well, in Dirty Harry, it wasn't complex at all. We shoot the bastard.
Well, I take it you probably early on in his career, you probably might have thought of Woody Allen as a one-note guy. If you did,
yeah, lightweight, and not only that, but this self-indulgent egotism really is not my thing at all. I mean, it's not.
When did that perception change for you?
I assume with Annie Hall, but even Annie Hall, see, the what he did, which won most of the people over, but probably lost me, was this saturation of publicity about Woody Allen, the myth of Woody, the image of Woody, that he is so clever, that he is funny, he's so funny. And of course, one of the things in his films is he constantly almost mocks the idea of his being a gag man. Then when I realized that this was selling him as a commodity, and certainly not as an artist, not even as much of a comic, well, kind of a one-dimensional comic. So there wasn't really much for me to relate to. If I'm going to have my humor, of course, Lewis Black wasn't working. Well, he might have been working, but I wasn't seeing him. I liked Mort Saul, and he has said that Mort Saul had a tremendous influence upon him and changed his writing. But of course Keaton and Chaplin, the great comics of all time.
Groucho,
and I like Groucho, and I like the Smothers Brothers. But there wasn't a whole lot of. I guess I thought many of his films were in a sense anti-intellectual, and they were cute and clever and coy, but when he evolved and the risks took him down a dark hallway, I said, "No, wait, whoa! What's down that dark hallway? You aren't carrying the sparkler in your hand anymore. What's going on here?" So, I think today at this hour, I probably respect and am more of a quote fan, unquote, not a total fan of Woody Allen than I've ever been in my life.
For me personally, I will say I've always adored Woody Allen, and one level of it is it's a kind of comfort food for me because it's comforting to know, oh, it's that time of year, we're going to get another Woody Allen movie, and it feels like coming home in a way whenever I'm able to see a new Woody Allen movie. It's a tradition now, and it's something that I'm really going to miss if he ever, when he passes and when he stops making movies. But the other thing is there is a certain inconsistency there because he will stun you with a great drama like Vicky Cristina, and then he'll go back to something like Scoop, or You Can Meet a Tall Dark Stranger. And there's the fact that he makes so many movies that his voice is so dominant, and you get such a constant diet of it that sometimes it's hard to feel surprised by him, like you're discovering something new.
I used to think his voice was shrill, and I don't like that. I mean, I don't like shrillness.
Yeah.
And now that I see that behind the shrillness is an orchestra or a jazz band or some kind of a combo, it has allowed me, and it's my fault, although I wouldn't change my principle about it. I just didn't like those movies. Didn't speak to me. There was nothing. One of the funniest movies I've ever seen is Fireman's Ball, Milos Forman's film, and foreign film. And if you watch that, you, in a sense, see what Woody wasn't and what he has become. There wasn't humanity in his early films. They were shtick. And now he's allowed the humanist in him to develop, and he cares about it. And the things he cares about are the things I care about. I care about art. I care about humanity. I care about possibility. I care in potential. I care about human relationships. And in a world that's becoming less and less welcoming to complexity and to humanity at its most, not vibrant, but maybe vital, most creative, that's it, most creative, the humanity at its most creative. I now see Woody carrying that torch.
Yeah. Let me ask you another question about Woody Allen's in terms of his writing, because I remember us talking about Stanley Kubrick the first time we spoke, and we were talking about the language of Kubrick's characters, and that it's very, very short, non-communicative dialogue that he normally gives his characters, and that's reflective of, people generally don't say anything of worth. And yet Woody Allen, his characters speak a lot of times in very overtly intellectual ways. You even mentioned
there's a huge difference between Woody Allen and Kubrick's idea about humanity. Woody may make comments about the absurdity and the miserableness, and Kubrick believed it. The reason why those lines were so vacuous and banal is that's what he believed human nature was, what human beings were. And Allen is on the other side of it. I mean, he'll make a funny. Somebody, I think it was BBC, asked him about the hopeful moments in one of his films, Hannah and Her Sisters, and he said, "Well, if you think they're hopeful, I've failed." There's a choice between horrible and miserable, and that's it. But that's. I mean, there's something in him that is led to say that, the darkness. But there's the dark side of Woody, and for anybody that really wants to understand him, you should see Interiors, which was wonderfully photographed by Gordon Willis, wonderfully acted, got 2 acting nominations. It has the Swedish Bergman-esque, cold, sterile settings. Diane Keaton's in it, and E.J. Marshall and Geraldine Page, who got a nomination. And it's the dark side of Woody, and that's what I guess I appreciate the dark side of Woody more than I do the giddy side.
Yeah.
But I think I have blown my reputation as a critic in this hour with you, because
no, I mean, to be honest, it's very I think it's justified somewhat and understandable to dismiss a certain segment of Woody's filmography. I mean, I think there are a lot in there that I'm extremely mixed on. I mean, there's some that I think are as bad as anything anyone could make, and then there are some that are just absolute genius. There are some of his comedies, like Small Time Crooks, I'll put on that film and I'll just laugh from beginning to end. But then there are others that completely move me, and I do think that the track of films like Crimes and Misdemeanors, Match Point, Vicky Cristina, Blue Jasmine, I think that's such an exciting direction for him, and that's the Woody that intrigues me most.
Well, the Woody comedy, and I go way, way back, because I don't just want to say, you've got to be a dark side, Jerry Lewis, kill somebody. The one that I think is the funniest and most witty is Played Against Sam. Mm-hmm. The play he wrote that he appeared in. Mm-hmm. I think I am very much enamored of that film. The other thing, Jamie, is that I love wit. I love creativity and wit.
So, if you were to recommend 3 Woody movies to someone uninitiated with his films, which ones would they be?
It would all depend on who the person is, because I'm kind of I make things, make recommendations to the person saying, what have you liked in the past? Woody Allen has made a film that I think, I look every year for one film, at least one film, that I can recommend to almost everybody. Like Julie and Julia was a film that I thought anybody who's human should enjoy that. It should be a very entertaining film. I put on my list Midnight in Paris. It isn't his greatest film, but it's popular and it's beautiful and it's romantic and it has great music and it's about culture and it's just terrific entertainment. So I would say that would be one. I was thinking also of so many of the filmmakers, my favorite film is not their best film. And I know that. I like Wild Bunch. I appreciate Wild Bunch. I think Wild Bunch is a wonderful film. But my favorite probably is The Ballad of Cable Hogue. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about Woody, and I think about this whenever somebody asks me this question. What film would you take out of his work and miss the most? In other words, which of the films is so integral to the man, what the man was at his best? And I would say Annie Hall would be my second choice. And my third, Match Point is in the top 5 right now. My third might be Manhattan. Mm-hmm. I know what my third would be. I take that back. My third is Interiors. Yeah. Not that anybody else would like it, but I love it. I think it's a terrific movie, a wonderful movie.
Our co-host Dean, that's his favorite movie. It's always fascinating to me because every time a filmmaker that has a body of work comes out with a new movie, you see these lists where they rank their movies from top to bottom. And the way people rank Woody's films are always fascinating to me. They're always so different from list to list. I mean, I obviously love Vicky Cristina. I think Crimes and Misdemeanors is the strongest drama he's made for me personally.
They both would be in my top 7 in films of Woody that you must see.
I've always had a soft spot for Another Woman too, which is the Jenna Rollins. The only time he's worked with Jenna Rollins and Gene Hackman.
I think you may have heard my conversation with Jenna Rollins when it's on my and when she was up for the Oscar in Woman Under the Influence, and I've compared Cate Blanchett to her in that film. So I completely understand that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if he asked me tomorrow, my list might change.
Different. Yeah. Sure.
It's kind of a mercurial, quicksilver thing. I don't want to say it's so that I can't make up my mind, but my appreciation does shift.
And you've got 44 movies to choose from, or something around that. Obviously, he has Final Cut. He has ultimate creative control, and he has the one career that all filmmakers envy. I mean, given his parameters, he knows the budget that he's working with each time out. He can do whatever he wants, and that's an extremely rare and enviable position. And he's had it for a long, long time. I mean, Coppola even said, "I want Woody Allen's career. I wish I could do that. Just go in and make a movie every year, and just get him out there without complication, without handlers or people meddling in it." I mean, that's an extraordinary career right there.
Yeah, but he still even Woody still has to walk the red carpet and attend the festivals and do the play to the system. Mm-hmm. I think Woody has a sense that he is this almost total iconoclast, and yet he knows, like Kubrick, he's a good businessman. And the two of them, Woody and Kubrick, knew that they could have their freedom, but there were some things that they had to do that they wouldn't have done if the system didn't demand it. I want to make one more point about Chaplin before I forget it, about Woody and Chaplin. I don't know whether you ever saw a film called Monsieur Verdoux, where Chaplin wrote it, did the music, acted in it, and he played a serial killer. And it was the dark side and the human dark side. And Woody's later career, whether it be Match Point or earlier, whether it be Crimes and Misdemeanors, he has that sense. He is a comic who has the dark side and keeps the dark side alive, keeps looking into the dark side. One of the best reviews ever was written by James Agee, and he wrote a 3-part review of Monsieur Verdoux. People didn't like the film the same way as if Woody does when he wasn't funny. They didn't like Interiors, but that doesn't mean that those films aren't among the two men's best. And thank the fates of cinema that those artists are able to go after their truth.
What period did that Chaplin film come in? Was that a talkie?
1947.
Oh, okay, wow.
1947. but Martha Ray is in it, and she chews the scenery, but she's very funny. But he marries women and kills them, and it is a classic. I suggest your listeners at least think about seeing it sometime, because it'll give you a different sense of Chaplin and his humanity and his willingness to go down that road, with what he did with Interiors, what he did with Stardust Memories, where everybody said, no, don't do it. Don't go there, Charlie. Don't go there, Woody. They went, and I think we're richer for it.
I wonder if that came, because there was that period of time when Chaplin was ostracized from the U.S. I wonder if that came from that period, from that experience, that film.
Probably some of it did. But I think it was the idea that the clown, the idea that the funny man, the other side of him. And Woody has said, "I'd rather be I'd rather be tragic than comic." There's something about the grass is always blacker on the other side, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, he's always wanted to be Bergman, and he's always said that I feel the most allegiance towards the dramatic. I mean, that's where my heart has always been.
Again, a very ironic thing is that Bergman is almost in complete freefall, his reputation. You don't hear him mentioned. You don't hear him mentioned as seminal or important or significant creative international film director. Just don't hear about him anymore. And there were so many takeoffs, and they mocked the Seventh Seal, that the mockery has taken over the quality of the film, the integrity of the film, and it's now hidden under this burden of being made fun of. And I think Woody has had to deal with that all the time. That's why he tries to be true to himself. For as trite as that may sound, I think that's an important quality that Woody has. That he'll fail. He doesn't like to fail, but he'll fail, and he hopes it will be on his own terms. And I think it is most of the time.